Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Lifting. Today's recording was recorded on 9/21/2023. And as we have been doing some, we're looking back at some of our older conversations that we had and wanted to dust them off, bring them back here to where we are right now, and bring in any new information. So we're going to continue that one. Doing that today. The episode that we chose was recorded as a Valentine's Day special on the 14th of February in 2017. And of course, being on Valentine's Day, it was a conversation about love. And specifically, there was great interest at that time, as there is with some people now still, regarding the topic of, let's just say, soulmates, things like that. So we wanted to have you guys listen because, again, when we first started in 2017, we were actually doing more of a radio show. You weren't seeing us. It was just something you could listen to. So we're going to cut out a snippet of that conversation here in a minute and let you hear it. And then we're going to bring it here to where we are now, talk about it a little bit and add to it. And we hope you enjoy this conversation. And as always, Chris, if you want to open things up.
Okay, the circle is now open to true benevolence with no conflicting agendas. So
we are all one. And when one is harmed, all are harmed. When one is helped, all are helped. Therefore, in the name of who I am, and I am one with all there is, that only the highest good be done. We pray for you, your friends, your family, your loved ones, to let healing energies in. Let them love you and nourish you and bring you to your highest good. We ask for benevolence to join us now. Benevolence with no conflicting agenda, be it guides, be it friends, be it the ones that are listening, their guides, their friends, anyone to come in and join and participate knowingly or unknowingly in this conversation in benevolence with no conflicting agenda. We also wish that any malevolence, any mischievous beings that want to distract or cause any sort of issues during this conversations to be guided out, to be swept away, so that this conversation can be had in its truest form. And we really want to send loving and healing blessings to you all right now. So with that and with that agreement, we say so be it.
And so be it. Okay, yeah, this was an episode we did on soulmates. I will play this clip from this episode for you now. We've had to basically chop off everything but the snippets because of the channeling that was in it. These are beings we no longer deal with, or the channelings. You know, all I had to do is hear one name and go, okay, you know, we can't include this. So just know that those snippets are being included in this episode now for you.
So tonight on the Valentine's Day show, we want to discuss all things that is love. So before we get started, we'd like to do an affirmation and blessing, which I will read tonight. May all be blessed here tonight, and may you begin to see all of the oneness of life and the love contained within. So tonight we're going to have Chris start off the discussion.
All right, everyone. I will dive right into tonight's topic. The story about how Joanne and I met is indeed a complicated one, full of love, alien abductions, and the backstage. If you guys don't know what the backstage is, that's the place where the aliens take people outside of the space-time continuum, but that's a different show. However, in spite of all we went through in the now partially forgotten times, we still recognize each other enough to come together in the here and now. Our story stems across time itself, from ancient Egypt all the way to the modern day. Though that happened to us, our search for truth led us to each other. Through all that has oppressed us, past and present, our love for each other conquered all of them. Throughout my life, I have been one of those very people that searched for my soulmate. I walked around in a not-so-tranquil daze, not to gloat, but I was hit on by many women and ignored them all to the chagrin of my family and friends. And I had vivid dreams of being with a beautiful brunette woman for many years. Even when I was a child, I saw this person in crystal clarity. I also saw visions of not-so-good situations with her. The dreams ranged from combat to escaping prison cells underground to even going on a quest as a white knight to find this damsel in distress, all the while not understanding why I felt I was supposed to be with someone special. Someone was indeed missing in my life in the most literal sense. I would not even give other women a chance. The story of our story is quite long, but I will say this. It was always meant to be. We are changers, we are soulmates, and we are pulled together from the same mold. Now, my mother is going to give her take on soulmates.
Good evening. Well, my version of what a soulmate is has changed over the years. I can remember a time, especially in my 20s, that every man that came into my life and that I had feelings for, I figured this was my soulmate. At that point in your life, you just want to be loved. You want to have a partner just so you can fit in with your friends. You do not want to be single. I call it the desperate stage of wanting that forever love. The wedding, the babies, the house where you will live happily ever after. As for this person you were thinking is the right person and your soulmate, you start justifying all their traits and actions in an attempt to make the person fit in somehow to your own ideal of what you want as a mate. When someone says, I love you, and you say it back, this becomes part of that dream of yours. You may move in together or get married, but eventually one of two things will happen. One, the relationship falls apart and your heart breaks. Or two, you stay together with someone you have settled for. You just know if you try really, really hard, and each of you just changes just a little, you will make this relationship work. If this person is not the right person, no matter how hard you try, it will not work. You cannot change anyone to fit your dreams. You can only change you and your perspective. So your dream falls apart, and so does your vision of what is right for you. To some people, this pattern can happen a few times because we believe in love and we want someone to love us. Some people find their true love right away, but most of the time it takes a lot of growing and a lot of self-reflection. When we break up and break down, it is not a complete loss. At the time it feels like it, but our dream of love picks us back up and we start all over again. This loss, in fact, in most cases, is a blessing. It forces you into looking at yourself and what will really make you happy. Everyone that comes into your life, both good and bad, plays an important role. Whether it's teaching you what you do not want, blessing you with a child or children, and or making you realize that you need a whole lot of work on understanding who you are, what you truly want in life and love, and what you really are needing in a relationship that will bring you joy. Everything happens to us for a purpose. I know, I hear that a lot, and when you've lost someone, that's the last thing you want to hear. As you evolve and grow as an individual, and you look back on these events, you know that you did learn a lot about yourself. At that point, you and your higher self is your soulmate. This is a time you learn to love yourself first. Once you really understand yourself and what you really need in a partner to be fulfilled, a person comes along and falls right into place. This may be your soulmate. Your soulmate may be guiding you from the other side, or it's right here in this plane. But it is definitely part of your soul group. With this person, you can now love openly and not hide any part of yourself in any way or settle for less than you deserve. Loving comes easy and natural. You accept this person with an open mind and an open heart, and they accept you the same way. There's no more game playing, just honesty. Your good points and your flaws are accepted. They're tolerated. And they become things each of you not only accepts about each other, but you now know that no one is perfect. You will compromise over time, but you will not have to sell yourself short. You'll want to make changes and evolve because you want to, not because you have to in order to keep this person. If being alone and loving who you are is enough for you, then you still know the meaning of a soulmate and the true love of you and your higher self. So to me, what is love? Well, I know it's not blind. It's an awareness of the other's soul. It's acceptance and a partnership in which you evolve together. Love is comfortable. It's your best friend. You feel safe. You're honest. They make you laugh. And it's passionate. You want to make each other happy. And you enjoy each other's company. And you feel content knowing whether they're in another room or they're right by your side holding your hand. When you're in love and you make eye contact with your partner, you feel their soul looking back at you. You realize that everything and everybody you have gone through in life has led you to this one person that was worth the wait. May everyone listening tonight find that love that you've wished for and have created in your heart. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
And hi, everyone. This is Joanna. What I would like to contribute to this whole conversation is actually has to do with my knowledge that we all indeed have a soulmate. A lot of times here in these shows, I normally kind of stay in the background, cheer other people on, but I myself do have visions and different things that I've been gifted with, and for the first time I'm actually wanting to share something very beautiful with all of you. So I was actually blessed with a vision that showed me exactly how all of us were created. And this vision came to me literally one morning when Chris and I were getting ready in the morning, and we just stood there and we just hugged one another. And as soon as I closed my eyes and relaxed into the hug, it literally played out like a movie for me to see. And I think I was shown this vision for several reasons. One of which is because I was pondering the truth of Chris and my relationship, that whole soulmate concept. The other had to do with me trying to understand a certain passages that I was reading in a particular book series called The Law of One. And in that book series, the passage was the discussion of what was called the Logos, and Logos is spelled L-O-G-O-S, the Logos of love. And what I had written in the blog, and my understanding was that what love is, defining love in the higher energies, that love has a more advanced understanding and seems to have a totally different meaning than what we are normally used to right now. So when I was trying to really tease it apart, the difference between why are we going into unity and love, and why don't we have a clue about what love is now and what love is in these higher energies, and it was coming across that we were just at the baby steps of understanding the concept. I will just try to give you a brief synopsis of what I was understanding from the readings. And so from what I could figure out, that love in that understanding has all to do with the creative forces, with co-creation and the creative forces. So the source of all, the source that makes up all of us and all the space in between, in that dialogue, in that book and understanding, is referred to as infinitive intelligence. And since the source is all, it's kind of like, think of it as Play-Doh that can be made into different things. So you and I are a little piece of Play-Doh. The chair you're sitting on is a little piece of Play-Doh. Everything's like this little piece of Play-Doh. And so how are things made from this Play-Doh? Well, in the Law of One series, they refer to that, the substance or the dynamic that makes things from this source, this Play-Doh. It's referred to as infinitive energy. So as we learn and grow, we get a better understanding of energy. And then we learn to use energy to manipulate the infinitive intelligence. And of course, that only is going to happen with the permission from the source. And thus, we are learning to create. And in those higher realms, that process is referred to as love, the co-creative process of making something. So what happened is that in this one vision, I was actually gifted with seeing both of these thoughts so that I could understand them better. So bear with me, and I'm going to tell you exactly what I saw. So as I closed my eyes, what I realized, I was actually staring in a room. And in the room, there were multiple beings, humans. They looked just like humans. And there were multiple of them in the room. They were all around, and then it kind of reminded me a little bit of a science room, I guess, is what I would say, a laboratory, something similar to that. But anyway, a medical ward, something like that. So in general, what I actually saw were these beings gathering and becoming and getting into a circle. And then they stood there and they raised their hands up to their sides. And in the center, I actually saw energy balls start to form. And in this energy ball, it grew and it was sparkly and it grew bigger and bigger. And then in the center of that, to me, it was a brighter sparkling that kind of you would think of as just a star in the center of this big energy ball. Then I watched as they themselves took opposite sides. So a group was on one side and a group was on the other side. Then what they started to do is literally think of pulling it, not touching the energy ball, but kind of pulling it to each one of the two sides, opposite sides. And they started pulling, and then the energy ball started separating. And it was this very kind of slow process, and it reminds you of pulling taffy. And it was this very slow process that was going on. And the last thing to actually finally pull apart and separate was that little energy star. And then you had now two. And then what I literally saw was they took the two that were kind of floating in air, and they literally then underneath them, each one, they placed like a gurney. The energy settled onto the gurney, and on the gurney then grew a male on one side and a female on the other. And then they literally took those two gurneys and pushed them back together so that the male and the female, the two there, intertwined themselves, although they were separate, to hug each other, to be one again. And I was stunned with what I had just visioned. And when I opened my eyes and got a hold of myself to tell Chris what I had actually just witnessed, and we talked about it, what I had seen is they gifted me with the vision of seeing the creation of Chris and I, but also the understanding that is how everyone in this learning experience is created. We all have a soulmate. And as I said in the blog, that not all soulmates are here together at the same time, but rest assured that you have one. And also, again, that even if you are not to be in this lifetime with your most beloved soulmate, and you are meant to be someone, you can have the most beautiful and wonderful life with a member of your soul family. But what I was also shown was what is referred to as the Creator Council. And so even at their level of higher education than where we're at, it still took a group of them to pull their abilities together, not one who created the pair, but a grouping that worked together to pull their energies that they knew how, and they did it as a group, and that was basically referred to as the Creator Council. Now again, none of this occurs, obviously, without the Source's approval, that he will allow for these souls to be created. But it was probably, well, honestly, it was the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. And I think, again, this just kind of solidified for me the beauty of the oneness and where we are going and what we are learning to do. We're growing, we're learning the importance of understanding yourself, the importance of truly understanding that, yes, there is a co-creative process. And yes, you need to focus on the bottom line of what you want. Don't focus on how to get there. Don't focus on the worry. If you focus on the end result, the happiness, the joy, then you bring it to you, because that's how the co-creative force works. And so that really is what I really wanted to contribute tonight, and just, to reassure everyone that, there is so much love around us. There are so many things that just love us, and you need to just take a second and breathe and look around. If you're lonely, look at nature. I have been there. I understand. Look at nature. Right now, go outside. Most people call it weeds, but really, if you look at it, you're going to see all kinds of flowers. They're beautiful. Look at them closely. Listen to the birds. Take the time to reconnect with the things out there that are just want to love you back.
Okay, yes, you heard snippets from that Valentine's Day episode. Obviously, this is not being recorded on Valentine's Day, as she said, but we wanted to rehash and retouch on these different subjects. And you heard her explanation on love. I also have said that love can go both ways. You can have, they always say that's the driving force of the universe. Well, I suppose, but in this, there's even a bad guy could love what he's doing wrong. So people forget that. People say it's based on hate and fear. Yeah, you could say that too, but somebody is taking pleasure and loving what they do, in a positive or negative sense. So it's actually in a more neutral place than you think. The church trying to basically say you're to love everybody, they're trying to segregate some of your emotions out. That's why you saw it bleed over into the New Age movement, from Jesus and Christianity to the New Age movement, because they're trying to basically separate you from either integrating emotions properly, like anger, or they were trying to basically say love was one thing. And I also want to disclaimer a little bit the law of one material, the and humble material that that I always you hear me complain a bitch about in other recordings. That, as I've said before, there some of those channelings were brought through either to co-create certain things to take place, like some of the predictions about the government programs, or or it was the AI doing that from the captured raw that we talked about earlier on in other lifting episodes, where they were the first group assimilated by the Orions when they broke through into this expression. So the bird people, that is, and that's where they got the bird DNA, and that's where they got the winged angel looks and the whole bit. So I just wanted to basically say that we don't support that book material, but there are snippets that can be used. Like with our original material, there are snippets that we can actually repurpose and reuse that are exactly accurate still.
Said it very often. You don't necessarily want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. That we do encourage people to listen and look at all kinds of materials. And again, a lot of things have within it snippets of very useful and very helpful information. It's about discerning and about figuring out, what pieces are there, are things that, seem like a personal truth to me, and what things maybe do I just want to set it aside and move on. And so you're not going to, again, we've always said this before, there's not one book, there's not one piece of information out there that is 100% like you can take it to the bank, it's true. It's not, it doesn't work like that. But again, I liked and want to expand a little bit on some of the conversation, because it didn't really have the full conversation there, because it was just a specific thought that was coming through and a specific kind of vision sequence that was coming through. But interesting enough, I still do hold on to the thought about the co-creative force that you internally have to be able to take infinite consciousness, okay, the source of all things, that ability to then, with your co-creative energies, with your energies, taking that canvas of whatever things that already exist, like for example the person sitting beside me, or creating things out of nothing on your own, planting a seed and creating a garden, that all of this is about you deciding of your interaction and what you want to work with. And in a sense, that is, again, what love is. Love is about what are you really expending your energies on and co-creating with. So you could have a love for all kinds of things. Maybe it's you love co-creating with another human being. Maybe you like co-creating with nature. Maybe you like co-creating with the animals you have around you. But in that sense, that there is that expansive understanding of what does those four lovers love actually mean. And I've more than just on that show, there's been other shows that we brokered the conversation of love and trying to kind of explain those energies. I think when I look back at that, one of the things that I can say is that the vision sequence that I had was the vision sequence that I had. Yeah. Okay. I'm not taking it back. I'm not saying it didn't happen. It exactly happened and exactly was described back to you, exactly what I saw. So that is exactly what happened. Now, the question, I always think of is, and I'm always open to, now that so many years have passed, is I'm more open to, was that answering a question that I had? And sometimes I believe we get prophetic visions or whatever to answer a question that I have. Was I answering it in the full breadth of the understanding of it? Or was I only answering it more in the understanding of where my own mind was at that time, to draw that movie, to do whatever? Was that my higher self telling me about that? Was there something else involved? I think I'm open to conversation on that, but I will never change the story of my vision, because what I saw is what I saw. Mm-hmm. So, and that's important, because again, we can have visualizations and we can have certain things, Do we know all of the ins and outs of it? No. But at the time, again, it was something beautiful, explaining something beautiful. It was very, very interesting. Still one of the most interesting things that I have seen that I've tried to express to others. But I am more open to hear a more fullness of that conversation. Now, I will say that my understanding of soulmates has changed when certain again, when we talk about people coming together, for example, people coming together for an experience. Chris wanted to experience something, and he needed, let's call it playmates, to be in this area together to help him have this experience. And so soul family, we would probably call it soul family members, and people who agreed to participate in that experience to help Chris gain what he wanted to gain, and also probably gain something. If you participated, you're going to gain something in it yourself. And that kind of playmanship and different things is I don't have any problem with that thought process, that things like that go on. I will say that I've heard a couple people speak since then with, again, different descriptions of things that we speak of, but they speak of it in a similar manner. Like, for example, when we say the word oversoul, we think of it as, there's a bunch of Jodys running around, this avatars, like I'm an avatar to one great soul, and tons of avatars running around doing things that one great soul, is overseeing and learning from, and all of this stuff is going on. So now some people will also refer to that oversoul as, because it's related to one large, huge soul having multiple experiences in different ways at the same time. And we call that the oversoul. Now, some people say above that structure of one having multiple experiences, that something that we refer to as soul family, where they're like tree branches touching one another, right, and gaining experience. I think some people actually say that there is a larger type being that is kind of the overseer of all those souls that have collected together, that they are separate, but they're having these tree branch connections, having multiple experiences.
They're not the same oversoul, mind you,
but in their definition, there is that type of oversoul that now is, instead of just one, that is overseeing a multitude of like different individual souls having different individuals. We always refer that kind of the family, the soul family kind of existence, and we in our visions were tree roots. So it's an interesting conversation, because I think there is somewhat of an agreement that certain expansive experiences like that occur without agreement of how to explain it in terminology. So I find that very, very interesting. Now, I again am welcome to the revetting of the conversation about, souls, or in a creation process. Is there a male and a female in this particular expression? Is there a creator council? Is any of like that still, hold true? I hope that's touched on today when we talk about that. I think if there's new information or more onion layers to explain it, I think we're definitely open to that, and ready for that kind of conversation. So I do want to revet that.
That, and also what you heard about the Creator Council, we spoke about that in our basically the Map of Creation talks that we had originally on Patreon. Also, the fact that those were beings that were genetically engineering different aspects of humanity and bringing in the energies quickly. Now, there's another quickly to form them, is what I'm trying to say. Now, there's another aspect of this, that there's evolution based. You have Chrome's people, for example, which from the time, and also Toran Kal as well, and from the time they first came from energy. They this happened over millions of years. They came in to more of a skin suit-esque type of situation, but it was more like a blobus type form. Then over millions of years formed the blood and the bones and all this other part up to the point where they could walk. Some people, when they have visions of this, they see it as happening quickly when it happened over millions and millions and millions of years. And then those were some of the bigger people that were here on Earth. Those are the Titans that I'm talking about. So you may have heard in a previous episode that's in our subscription about that I explained some of the Titans. But with this, they would these types of groups would have made that energy to matter conversion like that, kind of like the transport on Star Trek, where it was an energy matter converter. They would have done that very quickly with what they were trying to create. Also, like a replicator or even a clone situation. But even though clones are made in liquid bathtub type situations, depicted correctly in Doctor Who, I'm just saying this particular situation is similar to that of Chrome's people, but they've sped this up a little bit, where you saw it all at once. Now, I understand some of the technological logistics now. So
but I will say that one of the things that we didn't say at that time that we've tried to learn a little bit more is about the concept of vibrating in certain frequencies. And again, we're
going from one set of physics to this physics is essentially what it was. Yeah.
Right. And that we literally are vibrational beings, like a radio station. Every single person is its own radio station, meaning in general that, everyone's frequency is close, but varies potentially a little bit. Now, I heard a conversation once, and I'm open to that conversation. It's an interesting thing because it's really saying that souls do vibrate at their own individual frequency. And if you can attune to that exact frequency, then it really is at a point where you're having potentially shared thoughts and things like that. But what we're saying is like identical thoughts, identical things, because it's only one frequency vibration. And if you tune into it, you're tuning into what's in that frequency vibration and what's going on there. And so, people say that that's how telepathy is accomplished, when you can find a way to reach an agreed upon frequency. And that's how this is happening. I find it an interesting conversation. I do not know, obviously, the physics of it, but I will say that it is interesting. And then what happens, if you create things that have a preponderance to certain types of frequencies, that birds that flock together kind of thing going on. And again, I do believe there is one base frequency that, again, is what we refer to the sources of all things, that are base, let's call it the base frequency. What we truly belong to, what we truly are a part of, is that frequency of that overarching source frequency. But we must somehow have to live within, let's say, a cone of it, because again, we do vary and we do have different aspects off of that. But if you could go all the way back to your true originating, it's the frequency of the source, because everything and everyone originates from it.
Yeah, and also this is going from one set of physics to another set of physics. You have dimensional, or wherever some of those energies are culminating. When they enter here, they enter a particular form constrained by our sets of physics. Some people call that a light being when something comes across, and like what was said in other recordings, there's really no such thing as a light being. It's how you're perceiving what's coming from another set of physics. They could look exactly like you, and they're from another set of physics. A good example is the show Farscape, where an ancient being that was in it would enter our physics from another set of physics. Said he came from a non-corporeal set of physics. He entered ours. He looked kind of like a Muppet. But then he was able to shapeshift into the character's Crichton's father. He just said that's not how he normally looks, except in our physics constraints. So the reason I bring that up is bringing in that energy and forming it here. You're bringing in some of that source energy and forming it into what our physical strengths are in our level and in our frequency bandwidth. And those individual souls have their own individual frequencies at that point. That's essentially what that whole creator council was more than likely doing at that point in their little tinkering. And that little, from what I saw, it was a little, I don't want to say cauldron. That's the bad choice of words. It's more like if somebody had a diorama of like a stadium or something like that, or like a bathtub looking deal, but with the miniature figures in it, that's kind of what this thing looked like. And so I know exactly what they're doing. They were all standing around watching this going, so I know what some of those beings were doing. Have I been able to come in contact with any of those circles of beings? No. I've attempted to do so. It could be that they're, as some people like to say, they're too high up, meaning the frequency is too fast to access. Some people in spirit are that way. When we did that channeling with my friend James, I couldn't access him because his frequency was too fast. So that doesn't mean that from the time we first spoke to him to now. So that's actually an explanation behind that. The reason I'm able to talk to like Elena, Vesa, Isaac, and them, and they're more on par with us. They're more on par into that frequency type. They're physical beings. And people always get surprised when I say things like that, because if they hear them, like total strangers, they will hear them and go, "Wait a minute, aren't these like light beings or something?" No, you're just picking up with telepathy, and it is sounding. It's weird to you, and it's sounding like it would be something in a higher dimension when it really is not. So that's another episode for another time. We can redo the telepathy thing at some point. The differences between channeling and telepathy, all of those. I think it's a wonderful topic for another time. But I think this is a good time for the galactic contribution. I hope everybody actually likes us doing all of these recaps. We have to go back and recap, especially if there's old channelings in there of beings we no longer associate with. Those particular vibratory frequencies do matter. You try to bring something here and now, you're going to feel something really weird. I've been feeling that going through over our old material, and it doesn't always mean bad either. It's because I'm getting a temporal frequency from one end to here, and that's changed considerably in the last 6-7 years. That frequency overall has changed. So I'm picking up on some of that too, even from my own vocals from channeling or otherwise, or her vocals channeling or otherwise. So that's something to think about too. So, or consider. So who? Oh yeah, be nice if I find out who's talking. Okay. Okay, it's Lena, Vesa, or Isaac. That's usually the choices we have at the moment. Yeah. Energy must be clearing out here. It is kind of dizzying today, matter of fact. So, Elena, is that the one? Are you the one that wants to talk? If the two of them are standing close together, I know one's dark hair, one's light hair, and sometimes the energies blur, and I have a hard time seeing. And sometimes they'll have streaks in their hair. Sometimes I have trouble seeing who I'm looking at. So, Elena, I know you guys would want to talk about the whole love episode too, so that's interesting. All right. Bear in mind this is a subscription, so you can say whatever. So oh man, God. I usually don't know it's energy drain somewhere, but okay, Elena, through this crystal, please. Yes, hello. Yes, this is Elena. This is good that this is being touched on, especially that of the soulmate topic. It is extremely expansive, and there's some stuff that you may not have considered in this topic. Yes, it is a generalized term, a cookie cutter term, no pun intended in this particular way, especially the way you saw the energies cookie cutter, get it? But that's essentially how some of those beings would have regarded something like that. Let's try this template and go, dun, 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 dun. They would have regarded it that way. They're special like that. So Not that we've met any of them, we just know them by reputation. So they are the equivalent to the first ones in Babylon 5, where you had the regular races, then you had the Vorlons and the Shadows, and you had the ones that were way before even them. Those would be like the first ones in that particular way. That's how those are regarded. Joyus's people are somewhere in between. They're more like where the Shadows and Vorlons are. Staged behind those, like Lorien's people in it, would be like be essentially who you saw doing all that. That would be the classification of it. So people think, oh, old races like Vorlon or Shadow, or like in reality Joyus's people, but they're much older, and that's the classification. But as far as the soulmate thing goes, yes, is there also elements of soul family, soulmate, and even other aspects of self that also go into the oversoul and multiverse category, rooting for you? Yes. Are there people that help send people in to help in whatever it is you came in to do? Yes. Are there people that come in as lovers and other family members? Yes. Are there soulmates that stay here and do that? Yes, on occasion. And do they come in to be a power couple? On occasion. And what I mean by on occasion is it's not always a 100% certainty. See, you're dealing with the multiverse, as he likes to say, infinite diversity and infinite combinations. Just because there's one set of physics in one place doesn't mean it's the same somewhere else, or it doesn't mean that dynamic's the same somewhere else. You've seen other universes that are much older than even yours. You've seen other setups that are different from the one you're in. Even other physics, like in your multiverse of madness, some people evolve to look like paint or color palettes. There are those things. So this is actually that, where here it's more of a choice, where it was more like you and your SSP histories, where you chose to come in straight from your previous incarnation at times. Whereas in the in-between period, you thought it out a little bit, saying, oh, yeah, we can actually manipulate this, have him born at this time, etc., etc. Whereas, yes, there were elements of him being controlled in that lifetime, but you tweaked the implant technology to throw off the timing a little bit. Yeah, those things did happen. So that's the kind of planning I'm talking about, but somewhere else as well, where your oversouls overlooked this whole thing and went, how can we put not just aspects of ourselves, but ourselves there in a situation where the energy is maybe slightly slower moving. Of course, sometimes it's not always that particular individual that couldn't enter the situation. Or, as you know, sometimes the best laid plans of mice and men tend to go awry, like what Jeffrey Hunter and them said, whereas they didn't get to complete everything on the list. You two wanted an absolute chance of being able to accomplish the entire set of bullet points. Or the sticky notes, as it were. In this case, it's closer to sticky notes. But then an architectural plan, going through everything you guys have gone through, etc., learning things that you have learned, etc., etc. Are some things about the twin flame and soulmate conversation crap? Yes, there is. I am sorry to say. Are there a lot of truths still to it, where some have greater bonding to each other than others? Yes, absolutely true. But you can throw out some of the blanket terms, just like you have altered the term love to mean love between two people. And this doesn't mean it doesn't matter who it is, just like Vesa and I are together in love, and we consider ourselves more soulmate figures. We don't completely attribute the label, but you get what I'm saying. You have like the overarching definitions of what you say love is. Why can't soulmate be the same thing, or twin flame being the same thing? You know, so other races have different opinions on what that is. Other states of being, other universes, other areas have different opinions on what that is. Just like there was as he saw in his past, there was a Sliders episode. It was about the multiverse, where the human brain was flipped in its makeup than what it was. The creative side was on the left, and the logical side was on the right. You see, and the frontal lobe was laid out differently. So when they tried measuring the brain mapping someone in that universe, from based on ones from your own and other ones that had mainly the other way, instead they were a lefty instead of a righty when it came to creativity, they screwed up that person's brain because they were from a different expressional value, even though they looked identical to one another. This is exactly what I'm saying. Some of the expressional values look exactly identical to one another. There could be some slight minor differences that you may not detect until you start to do medical things. That some of the universes are capable of scanning for those differences. Some aren't. Some are technologically based to be able to handle it and energetically based to be able to handle it. Some are more primitive in that way. So, but just know that these terms, the way you define them, or as Isaac would say, the theory of multiple everythings. That's actually a better term than everything everywhere all at once. But in this particular connotation, love and soulmates, those are more hardcore, and twin flames, these are hardcore terms that have different facets to the way you would think that they would be defined.
Which is okay. I think that everybody is okay, is pretty much okay with understanding, because it's what we're seeing when we see people try to describe things and we're not quite all using the same terms, but it kind of feels kind of similar.
Mm-hmm.
So from your perspective, my curiosity is, and from what you saw that I described those years ago, my curiosity is from your perspective, from your, I'm going to say philosophy, because again, have any of us met these people to know for sure? I don't think so. So it
We
just,
have not even met those people yet.
right. So I am curious through your philosophies and through the people that try to, gain knowledge, again, like what I was apparently trying to do. So my curiosity is, what do you think I was actually seeing within this big process? Because what we were first thinking was, wow, it must mean in this expression that no one is created alone, that there is, but in reality, no one actually is ever alone anyway. And so I am curious about teasing that out a little bit, because I just feel like I am not sure if I saw, why did I see the vision like that? And it wasn't because of my own personal belief system at the moment, or my way of or trying to interpret something. And what is it really? What's another onion layer to it?
Now, are there some races that don't have a counterpart like that? Absolutely, and he's encountered this. This shocked the hell out of the forebear when this conversation was had at that time on GIC. But also to recap and to describe the more in a favorable detail, because we were around for those then as well. What you were actually seeing was what he was saying before. Energies brought from another dimensional state and sped up. That tub-like thing, the bowl or stadium-looking deal that this was happening in, was a time dilation containment, whereas millions and millions and millions of years of evolution were done in a single moment. They depict this in your Stargate SG-1 when they were containing the AI replicator intelligence, where they accidentally sped a time dilation field up and allowed them to evolve very, very quickly. The same goes in your last episode, where they froze time to try to stay away from the Orion facsimile bad guys that were in a state of temporal stasis so they didn't die for 50 or so years. This is essentially the same tech that was being depicted in that time dilation, whereas you can speed it up or slow it down based on what happens in and outside of that. Your Voyager had that happen as well, with a planet that their years were sped up and it looked like a spinning donut. That where it sped up on the planet, even when the Doctor went down, he spent years there. It's the same concept. Whereas the way Chrome's people evolved from energy into a matter form very slowly, this was done in the blink of an eye. They figured out how to do this in a controlled fashion, knowing that it took that long to happen. But they didn't always account for like what you would know as natural selection. That's not completely true, but environmental harshness and or ease. So they had to tweak and experiment and find the Goldilocks or the zone or sweet spot with how somebody would evolve naturally on a planet, but moving kind of with an ebb and flow, and found a sweet spot there to artificially induce it. kind of like, you could kind of say a Garden of Eden type concept, but I wouldn't go that far. That was more of a causeway to Asgard in that. But that particular concept, can you make pairs of people like that, and then propagate a planet that way? Yeah, but you can't do it off two people. That's bull crap. But in this particular way, energy is brought from spirit and true benevolent source creator, brought in, and those frequencies were individualized and put together in that dilation field. When that took place, even though I was not there, I've heard of these experiments going on, though this was happened so damn long ago that it's tough to say. It's when the universe was far less populated. Let's just say that, like in your Babylon 5 series, saying the universe was less populated, that happens to be 110% true with the old ones or the first ones. This particular concept, some of them even call old ones or first ones in the galaxy now, even further back from the Orion Wars, people call them old ones or first ones. So that's what your author, Jim Michael Straczynski, was getting at. But this concept is absolutely true. Going from one set of physics to another, that's how you get the energies to create whole populations and worlds of people. As far as the specific topic right now, as far as soulmates, do things have to come in pairs? Yes, they do. But that's not always a complete certainty and what that frequency value requires, you see. There's whole planets of nothing but women out there. There's whole planets of nothing but men. You can think the old ones are creator council or whatever the hell you first ones you want to call for this. They were tinkering with the idea of separation and togetherness. They were tinkering of what was needed, what energies, masculine, feminine, were needed. They were tinkering what needed to be to make it balanced. They thought at the time, even though, again, the word soulmate is too hardcore, this was more or less the culmination of different energies. And then it was those beings that chose whether they were bonded that way or not. And it's a concept I wish people understand. It was a choice, and it's your choice to stay with somebody and be in love and love them. You see, people say you can't choose who you love. That's partially true. When you fall in love with somebody, yes, I know that's how it happens. It just happens. But you have a choice whether to regard that as you regard it or not, or stay or go, or all in between. You stay because you actually love and care for that person, not because of always an ancient bond. That has a lot to do with it, but it's only part to do with it. When those beings that way, and a lot more were made this way, after they were tinkering with separation. The ones that stayed separate, weird things happened on those planets. Weird things, gross things that I will not get into. But I'm just saying, not always. But I'm just saying I over-exaggerate a little. But with this, the energies were there by choice. Those souls did this by choice. So that is something I wanted to emphasize.
And I find the whole thing an interesting
Over
question.
souls did it by choice, I should say, bringing that fragment of them down in, yes.
And I'm glad you see, now you answered actually what I was thinking was happening. I think what you just said is extremely important, because we're not talking the creation of the oversoul itself.
No.
We're talking that it's a creative spark of an oversoul agreeing to have a different type of avatar creation, basically, where it's going to allow itself to be bonded with something, that avatar, and then go on and have some experiences, expressions, lifetimes, or whatever, with that type of energetic bond. And I'm assuming the other party has its own oversoul. So it's almost like an interesting little union of oversoul to oversoul,
Yeah.
creating something that's now separate, connected, but then also makes you a little connected oversoul to oversoul now. The reason I find that really important to say is because of what Chris said earlier, which was he also apparently remembers a different way of coming into being, which was that of Turing Kao, and that very slow process of gaining form on Earth itself. So again, I think it just
Both are true.
Right. So I think it just goes to show of how many that it really is, as you know, the endless possibilities kind of conversation where, you know, different ways of even coming into creation and different type of energetic connections to different ones. Or it's just an amazing thing to think of all of the different, you know, possibilities. And then how does it happen that one grand oversoul may also have an affinity or a connection somehow to another grand oversoul, which is what we're really talking about.
And you're thinking in terms of multiverse. Yes, Isaac, we know it's oversoul and oversoul action. We understand. So,
But it isn't interesting because again, it's way more. It's just way more than what you know. You have to really try to wrap your head about it because it's so expansive. It's so much more. And again, and now we're not talking the source of all things. We're just talking of one particular oversoul experience, and there's many millions and billions of oversouls, you know, in all of this creation. So to think of how expansive it really can be. And then again, when my limited thought process on what happens after that is the experiences start to happen there, that these ones that came together, there had to be somewhat of a very similar, almost identical frequency vibration going on. And then experiences start to occur, but because they were more like frequency, they were drawn to kind of come together, I think, during lifetimes or whatever. But the question, as you were saying, you don't have to always stay with somebody. It's not always kumbaya, that you could be somebody's great.
You don't always come back around to one another. I mean, yes, the Rubik's Cube thing is true where sometimes it's too far apart or matched, but you don't always come back around to each other like clockwork. That's a fallacy.
Because of the Rubik's Cube. So I can imagine, you know, which I always say
frequency rubs and whatnot, yes.
Right. And so, you know, you have to think about in the beginning where they maybe were matching and then let the drama begin. And then the Rubik's Cubes begin to change. And then there comes a point where they're like polar opposites.
As for also the Toran Kal going through the slow boat way to China, as you would say, the other way, that is the oversoul trying out both ways, the fast and the slow versions. You have done the same, yes.
Right. But I just think, again, it's just such instead of a single way, it's just such an expanse of thought that is happening in all kinds of different ways, more ways than most of us, you know, can put into our heads, more different ways like that, which then would, you know, simply put, you know, why, you know, I may get an affinity towards one avatar, let's say of the oversoul in the library of the person sitting beside me, and be okay with it, while I'm completely unhappy with another one, right? However, the interesting thing that I find, however, and again, this is not lovey-dovey world, because even in the depths of not being happy, the avatar of me at this current present moment time, during the time of struggle with that avatar, that one where we were like, right, this, but we were still drawn together to be like this. So I find the whole thing, I don't understand it all, but again, that what people want being the idyllic world of it, we're having a life together, which we oftentimes say that must be a timeout life, because most times it's not this perfect union. It's, you know, there's moments of good, there's moments of not good, but for some reason there's a little bit of glue there that keeps you kind of keep going and keeping together, unless you really do walk away. But I think the immensity of the experiences and what's being worked out, and the commonality of trying to maybe move something, but it's not easy. There's nothing easy, you know, about some of these lives, although you can say this is my soulmate and you smile in front of the camera, and your life isn't that easy behind the scenes, but for some reason there's some glue there. I find it very, very interesting, you know, all of the different dynamics, that sometimes there's hardship and you don't walk away, and there could be reasons that are benevolent, why you really aren't walking away and it really is for your highest good. Whereas, of course, there are other situations that are just as challenging, that the right answer is to walk away. And you have it all going on. That's why I just am like, well, all you have going for you at that moment in time is your personal discernment to say, is this something I'm going to stick through, that there's something going on for me to learn? Or is this one of those times where it's exactly a sticky wicky, but I know I need to go? And I find that complicated.
Yes, yes, it is a normal thing to have a rub with one facet of the oversoul, and not, since it is multiversal in nature, as everything everywhere or all at once, or theory of multiple everythings, or infinite diversity and infinite combinations. So yes, there would naturally be aversion that you would have an aversion to. And with the histories therein, linear, diagonal, multiversal, omniversal, super omniversal, and otherwise. I say otherwise because there's more to it than what we've said in the past and what you know. But yes, this is actually true. You can have an affinity for one, not another. And the reason being is, this is why Seymour had a rub when he came through on GIC, when he said, we don't have to do anything Toran Kal tells us, but we're fine with Christopher. This is why they said that. He was leaving you a bit of a breadcrumb there as to the realness of the concept. You saw other insiders on their touch on this. The one you watched just recently wasn't 100% correct. There are some bit of mis and disinformation that he has been embroiled in, but there are aspects that were actually still true, and that was one of them. Not all past lives are as he was saying. Some are yes, they are their own separate people, but are they their own separate souls? No. Multiverse? Yes. There is a difference. Same oversoul, but it's also the same soul learning. But he was referring to more rogue expressions when they try to invade your space. I suppose Toran Kal could be counted as that. He's his own personality, his own way. The reason he is seeing his own face on his face is because of the same oversoul and the bleed through. Kind of like when an AI program, when it takes a person's looks, you will see all the variants of looks that it uses that the computer has to go with. Think of the oversoul doing something similar. I'm not comparing it to AI. I'm just saying that even in some photos he did of yourselves in AI, he noticed some of your son Joseph's looks in it as well pop up, because it was using the variety of the facial features that were available. The oversoul does the same, and also the energy shape going from lifetime to lifetime. Is it a separate soul? No, but it is a different person with a different personality type. Yes, like your Doctor Who changing the face, they're a different personality type, but it was essentially showing the relationship between Avatar and Oversoul with that. Even though Valiant Thor's people were being depicted in that as well, you also saw the relationship between Soul and Oversoul, because it was the same memories, same all of it, except with each form he took, there was a different personality anchor or set of traits there each and every single time.
So again, I appreciate this conversation, because what we did really do here, what you did is you brought in information that really did say that what I saw was just one way, and that there's a multitude of different exploration and ways of creating or bringing something into being, not just the one way that I happened to glimpse at, although it appears that it was valid in the Oversoul's experience. Yes. That I had and that Chris had. So I just find this whole conversation interesting. So when we switch to the concept of love and the co-creative force and the choice of what you want to be co-creative with, is that just as simply as I put right there, maybe a more comprehensive definition of what love is? Or
you were on the mark, except of course, the raw material used things that were real and then added in things that were not, and the AI wanted to make sure that certain things were co-created, et cetera, by integrating good in with not so good. with this, yes, what you said was correct, along with what he said about bad guys wanting to love what they do as well. But one could judge it based on its original definition as well. You know, love and unity as well. Like what we told him, we used a song example, a particular song out that the title is actually starting to get garbled in my head, but it's basically it's a hang on. There was a particular pitch and sound in the background that was hitting his brain at the moment. You were hearing it a moment ago, and a chirping sound. This is or beep sound. This is what they did not. The song is called "Love Will Save Me Now" by Pretty Reckless. We showed him this, meaning the unity, meaning the camaraderie, meaning, yes, what you meant as well, but meaning grounded in relationships as well. That's what we were trying to get at. Excuse the AI interference. It did not want me to make the comparisons between all of these concepts that you put side by side, because people have only one definition in their head. So therefore, all of them juxtaposed next to each other was what was absolutely needed. Excuse the interruptions. Yes, so we can continue.
So again, I think with what you're saying, that it's still okay for us to say that our understanding of what those four letters put together, what it actually means, is going to continue to grow and expand in our understanding of, and the world does mean more than the simplicity that we put upon it right now. So that part of the conversation really stands true. And throughout this time, with things that Chris has come about and things that we've had channeling and conversations on, it's just been showing a greater expanse, a greater kind of picture and understanding about what love actually is, which is, again, way more than what we currently know it to be. So what I want to do, because again, I don't like these videos to go on and on and on. And we did originally talk just about soulmates, but I want to open the floor to anything else before we leave that you want to say just about that concept of LOVE, love.
Yes. Also, as far as that goes, of course, Vissa and me as two ladies, we have an active relationship. And of course, there's men, etc. I'm not trying to be a plug for the LGBTQ at all. That's as far away from that as you, or the so-called woke, as we're as far away from that as you can possibly get. We are just saying that aside from all your political issues, those things happen in the universe as well. They even depict that in Multiverse of Madness with the character of America having her two mothers. That happens in the multiverse. I told you those other two planets that were kind of weird, but that happened there. This happens in the galaxy. Granted, is this a human idea? Some species learn from you. It's kind of like that drug commercial. I learned it by watching you. Yes. It's like that too, where some species learn to adapt their energies to like the same genders. That did happen. It wasn't always that way, mind you. Creation started to shift and change after a while, and this was in the time of those old ones where they noticed that there was that affinity that came through for same-sex and multi-sex. So, and yes, there are multi-sex, but I'm not plugging the other thing. The other thing is purely political and more satanic. I'm talking about not the past life thing. I'm talking about the other expressional thing with the multiverse and past life type of thing. That's what I'm talking about. This is where I would like to end this before he gets hit too much with this. But just know that the concept is much broader than you think and feel, and the concept of soulmates, love, all, and twin flames, all of this is much broader. You are at a much more advanced stage than you were 6-7 years ago when you recorded this. So the original one. So this is why taking only clippets was a very good thing, especially taking the channel out of a for particular poet that you had in there. That's probably for the best. So not that I'm dumping on anybody, but him, yeah. So dump away, yeah. So he took a dump in your place numerous times, so it's only fair. I know he could hear me saying this, so yes, he unfortunately watches you guys quite a bit like a creepy voyeur. So we figured we would dump on him a little bit. So this is where we will leave it. We both love you both fully, completely, and know that the fact that we have a communication arc here, it's easy for us to communicate in this way. The formula with the Tower Busters works appropriately in that area, and the crystals assigned as such. So thank you. Bye-bye. Yeah, they weren't too keen on him, I can tell you that much. They don't like him at all. So yeah, I'm not even going to mention the name. Just know there was a previous channel in the entire Love 2.0 episode that I condensed down that didn't belong there anymore. I didn't even bother to listen to it. I heard the name and shut it off. So that's where I'm at with this. So I think we're at a stage where we can actually close this. Did you have anything to add?
No, I just really, we send blessings to everyone out there, first and foremost. We really, these are not easy times for many people. So please bring benevolence around you, allow for healing energies to come in, and understand, that you are not alone. There's so many understand, from their own personal experiences and what's going on, the hardship and how difficult it is for people, and find peace. Like I said, go out and just look at nature. Let those things that are there that want to love you, if you just sit there, open yourself up, you can feel that love back. Just try to go out and have these connections. Find your place of peace so that you can do it. And just remember that you truly are a loved being, and we just want to wish you well, and blessings to everyone.
Yeah, so thank you, everybody. I now close this